Good evening, learners. We have English language. Under that, we are going to look at one of the aspects, which is grammar. I want to look at the topic relative clause. The objective of the lesson is that the students will be able to identify relative clause in sentences. 2. Use relative clause correctly in speech and writing. Then lastly, and very important, differentiate between the two kinds of clause. Differentiate between the two kinds of relative clause. In our previous lesson, we discussed about a clause, and we also looked at the kinds of clause we have. What then is a clause? Well, we define a clause to be a group of related words that contains a subject and a predicate. A group of related words that contains a subject and a predicate. We all should know what the subject of a sentence is and what the predicate is. Example, when we have a sentence like, the man is my friend. The man is the subject, is my friend. That part of the sentence is the predicate. Very good. And we also looked at the kinds of clause we have. We said we have a dependent clause and an independent clause. A dependent clause meaning it depends on the main clause in a sentence to make sense. A dependent clause meaning it cannot make sense on its own, but for an independent clause, it makes sense on its own. Very good. So for our lesson today, we want to look at a relative clause. A relative clause. What is a relative clause? It is a clause that is attached to an antecedent by relative pronouns such as who, which, or that. It is a clause that is attached to an antecedent by relative pronoun such as who, which, or that. A relative clause is a specific type of subordinate clause that adapts, describes, or modifies a noun. It means with this relative clause, it is very special, hence it becomes or it works as a subordinate clause that describes or modifies the noun in that sentence. More examples will be given to explain this. We should also note that they usually come immediately after the nouns they relate to. So they come immediately after the nouns they want to describe, they want to modify in a sentence. They also qualify or describes the noun they relate to. Very good. The kinds or types of relative clause we have. We have the defining and non-defining relative clause. Defining and non-defining relative clause. When we say a defining relative clause, we say that it is a clause that is not separated from the main sentence by commas. It is not separated from the main sentence by commas. It forms an important part of the sentence. Example, this is the house which Jack built. Whereas that we cannot separate which Jack built from this is the house because we would want to make more meaning. That's to talk more about the house in the sentence. And it also comes as a whole sentence without the use of comma. We should pay close attention. it is not separated from the main sentence by commas. We should also know that the relative pronoun is the subject of the relative clause. The relative pronoun is the subject or the object of the relative clause. Example, this is the house that Jack built. So for this one, we can observe that that is the object of built. That is the object of built. I hope that is clear. We are saying that is an object because you realize that the subject in question is not a person. It's not a person. So here we have that acting on that as an object. In the second sentence, we have, this is the boy who killed the snake. This is the boy who killed the snake. Who is the subject of the verb? Who is the subject of the verb? Killed. So we don't need he to complete that sentence. Very good. Non-defining relative clause. It is a clause usually separated from the noun it relates to with a comma, bracket, or dash. It gives more information about the person, thing, or situation. So this one is the opposite of the defining relative clause. It is the opposite. So this one is separated with the use of a comma, a bracket, or a dash. But for the examples we're going to look at, we have the use of the comma. Example, I met my friend in town yesterday, which was a nice surprise. I met my friend in town yesterday, which was a nice surprise. We can have many examples to this effect. Many examples to this effect. I hope you can all give examples using the example given. Okay. My friend, the nurse, was in town yesterday. My friend, the nurse, was in town yesterday. Very nice. So when we learn this, it helps us use commas correctly in sentences. Even though we'll be talking about one subject of a sentence, we have the use of comma to add more meaning to the subject we are talking about. This is a very interesting lesson. I believe so. And I know we have learned a lot. So for our lesson today, we have just been brief and we have looked at a relative clause. We have also looked at the kinds of relative clause we have. We said we have the defining and non-defining relative clause. We have also defined it and given examples to support each of the kinds we have mentioned. I believe with more practice, we will be familiar with this lesson. I will encourage you to form more of these sentences on your own so that we can all help ourselves. Thanks so much for your time, for your attention. Enjoy the rest of the day. See you another time. Bye-bye.